Hello again, everyone. Keta Kosman, publisher of Madison's Lumber Reporter. Here we are. It is the middle of August, and it has been a slow year, a slow couple of years for softwood lumber sales across North America, given the slowdown in housing starts, especially in the US. We do have some solid update as the long-awaited increase in the softwood lumber duty has come into effect. So what we had last month in July was an increase in the anti-dumping duty, and now we have the expected increase in the countervailing duty. And so at this moment, Canadian lumber being shipped into the US is subject to a 35% duty on the wood as it crosses the border. This is double, as people know, from what it had been last year, and is massive amounts higher than ever in the past before. Long-time viewer and participants in the lumber market know that in the past decades, the duty was like 8%. I think at one point it reached 13%, but this 35% is now achieving the goal of the point of the duty, decreasing the volumes of Canadian lumber entering into the US. Don't miss out. Subscribe now. Your competitors and colleagues are already using Madison's every week to see what's happening with the lumber market. Go onto our website, click the link here in the caption to see more information about subscribing for yourself. As I had indicated even last year and definitely at the beginning of this year, customers in America have shifted their purchasing away from the northern western species to the southern species. And the southern yellow pine prices were increasing definitely at the beginning of this year. And now we have, in the past few weeks, some increases in western spruce prices to reflect this higher duty. Those increases are nowhere near 35%. They're barely 12%. So, as always, a portion of the duty is being passed on to the customer, but a significant amount of it is unfortunately having to be paid by the Canadian exporter of record. This means the dynamic of the softwood lumber sales across the continent and the exports internationally is changing and will be changing. There is a difficulty for the Canadians because Asia and Europe, if you're on the west coast or if you're on the eastern side of the continent, both make lumber and sell in metric sizes. And so the standard here in North America is 1,000 board feet. The lumber is measured in inches, feet and inches, and the cutting at the sawmills in Canada, in order to serve customers overseas, looks like there will need to be investment to retrofit the saw lines to metric sizes. I'm going to show you the graphs, don't worry. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about right now, but I want to point out this dynamic that I'm talking about as we have a almost flat southern yellow pine on the east side 2x4 price now, which is normal for this time of year. It's usually starts to slow down as, even though construction activity might still be going on, the builders have already received the wood that they ordered earlier in the year for their projects. So construction activity is still kind of happening at this time of year, but most of the wood has already been ordered and sold and paid for that's what makes it a slower time of year for the sawmills. In that context of the southern pine on the east side, prices being quite flat, dropping slightly just last week, but flat compared to 1 year ago. So this dynamic between the choice of the customer, whether they buy from the east side, the west side, the north, the south, is coming into play, and a very, very stable price trend for that southern yellow pine year over year. Western spruce, not so much. So as I said, in the past few weeks, the Western spruce price has been increasing in increments as an effort to keep up with the cost to the mills of the duty. But compared to the same time last year, Western spruce 2x4 prices are up 43%. People in the lumber industry are comparing current prices to 2 years ago. Do pause this graph to have a look at the black bars showing you these prices compared then to now. So here we have that benchmark Western spruce, Eastern spruce, and Southern pine east side, the red line, the yellow line, and the blue line. And if you look closely over to the right there, especially Eastern spruce, the yellow line spiked up significantly in the last 3 weeks due to the duty coming on. The red line, Western spruce also, but the blue line, Southern pine, trending down. This because, as I said in my previous video, the switch to southern pine from the northern species has already occurred. That has been bought out, and now those prices are adjusting back down. Specifically, I want to draw your attention to the very similar price between the western spruce and the southern pine on the east side 2 years ago, at around $420 per thousand for both of those. People are examining very closely what they call the price spread between those commodities, and going forward into the rest of this year and next year, that dynamic will have shifted, and the respective prices between those two items will be different than it has been in the past. So does that mean that the price was too low last year for what the market reflects? Or does that mean the demand for Western spruce took longer to adjust to these expected duties? It's hard to say right now, as we are still only in August and there's a few more months left of this year. Let me show you some graphs and I'll explain more about what I'm saying. All right, here specifically is that Western spruce. We have a 2-year rolling price history. The blue line 2025, as you can see, started this year quite similar to the yellow line of last year, and then did some increases in the spring, ticking up in a gradual way during the summer, as the curtailments at the mills was having an effect on supply demand, and as the announcements of the duty were coming on. So what we have right now is, for the past few weeks, that price stabilizing at US $533 per thousand board feet, up from the past years, but admittedly in those times those prices were a bit low. Here is that southern pine east side, a much more stable trend line. Once again, 2025, the blue showing an increase nicely, this time closer to the end of spring this year, but very well matching the previous couple of years. And as I was showing you on that other graph, if you look at the red line for 2023, you can see that there were some ups and downs later in the year. So that's what we're going to be watching as this year goes on into autumn, if that same uptick is going to happen again, or if this commodity has been bought out and that price is going to continue to flatten. All of these images and graphs and tables come directly off my dashboard. My customers are able to drill down specifically into whichever of the 500 individual commodity prices that we track. We call this the benchmark top 6 items. And if you look over to the right, you can see a moderate uptick over 1 month ago. And some of the prices, the Douglas fir specialty items, the plywood, down a little bit. That's normal for this time of year when, as I said, the construction is still going on, but lumber sales are starting to slow down as the wood has already been ordered, paid for, and is either delivered or is on its way. This is the same data presented as a graph showing you the 2-year rolling price history, monthly averages. I think the most interesting thing here, closer to the right, current months, is the blue line, eastern spruce, ticking up significantly, partially due to the reduction in production volumes of Quebec taking the annual summer holiday, but also the increase in the duty coming into effect. Conversely, if you see the yellow line, southern pine, ticking down, which is normal for the time of year as the seasonal summer slowdown is upon us. Okay, so interesting, right? Some of the questions that have been on people's minds since the end of last year have now been illuminated with the actual posting on the Federal Register in the US of the duty for the Canadian lumber. And we are watching closely to see what is going on with other country lumber imports into the US. As you know, it's obvious, everyone knows there is not enough lumber manufacturing in America to satisfy the need for construction. And as Canadian wood volumes will be dropping, and it's true there are sawmills in the US ramping up, there is announcements of new mills being built and more potential volumes to come online into the future, but it won't be immediate. It takes 3 years to build a sawmill, and even to invest and upgrade and increase manufacturing on existing sawmills takes quite a while. And so, where will that drop in Canadian lumber volume be taken up during the interim while the US works to increase the timber harvest, which will need to come off the public land, and build more mills? Some of it will come from South and Central America. Chile already has a robust customer for high grade plywood in the US. And Europe is doing what it can to ship into the US. That will be arriving on the East Coast. So, curious to see what will happen in other parts of the country, because it is very expensive to rail or truck lumber from the East Coast inland. And so, what does that mean for places like California, potentially Texas in the middle there? Both important construction markets, especially for the high end building. So, that traditional dynamic is definitely going to change, and Madison's will be here to tell everyone immediately. The company was started in 1952, based in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm the third owner. And we update the 500 individual softwood lumber and panel commodity prices every week. So there is no lag. The price that people see when they are a customer and they log into my dashboard right now is the price that wood is selling for right now. And when that changes, we tell you immediately. There are other issues going on across the continent. People are familiar with terrible fires happening this year. Thankfully, not as much in British Columbia, which is an incredibly important fiber basket for Canada. It's happening very badly right now on the East Coast, New Brunswick, a little bit in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. It's not a very high lumber manufacturing region. In that area is a lot of hardwoods. There is softwood lumber production in those provinces, but a lot of it is hardwood, which is a different animal and operates quite a bit differently than the softwood lumber market. And we will need to wait and see how much of terrible, terrible fire. We're talking hundreds of square kilometers, hundreds of square miles burned already right now and still burning. It's going to be a couple of days before the weather changes there and provides some relief. So check back often at Madison's to see how things are going on between the timber supply, the lumber manufacturing, and the lumber sales and the prices. If you like what you see here, click like so other viewers will get recommended this excellent content. Subscribe here on YouTube so you'll be notified when we make another update. And if you need more than just these little snapshots that I do for YouTube and the small updates that we put on the website, go on my website. There's a link here in the caption. Click to request a sample. You will see the full list of the 500 individual softwood lumber and panel commodity prices that we track every week and what that price is that week. And you will also get the commentary, which is part of my dashboard for my customers that explains why the prices are changing. Things like log supply, order file, is there a labor dispute, what's happening with transportation, things with the weather, fires, all of that is put in there every week for updates for people who really need to drill down into the details and find out what's happening with softwood lumber.